Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome. You can totally sit with us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to She's a Full-On Monet. Thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Megan. I have with me, as always, I'm not Megan, I'm Kelly. Wow. Just wow. I have no excuse. I have had coffee this morning. I've had breakfast this morning. I've gone for a walk.
Is it one of those things where you've said the same thing so often that you're just like, it rolls off, but it almost like has now merged together in certain areas?
Yeah, I guess so. But
I'm hosting, or you're Megan. I don't know. One or the other is happening.
We did this like Freaky Friday thing where we switched bodies.
Yeah.
I am Kelly. That is my name. It has been my name my whole life. And I have with me today Megan, and that has been her name for her whole life.
Yes, we are all caught up. Hello. Hi, Kelly.
Now I understand why like our teachers in school used to give us points just for putting our name at the top of the paper because I might not have been able to do it some days, apparently.
Sometimes it's for them to know who to give it back to. Sometimes it's for us to remember who we are.
There you go.
Here we go. Oh yeah. Well, you've had coffee, so you've had a productive morning, I'm assuming already.
I have had a full morning already. You are my second appointment of the day.
I don't know anything else. You don't know anything else. Even on vacation, you're productive.
Yeah, it's a problem actually. But today we're not talking about my problems.
No.
Well, we might talk about my problems, but not that one.
Oh man.
We are talking today about adversity and how every person handles the adversities of life in a different way, some healthier than others. And this is using the parable. And I had heard this before, but I talked to a lot of people on like our editorial team and they had not, about you can compare yourself either to a potato, not body shape wise, an egg also not body shape wise, or coffee, like ground coffee bean, however you want to put it. And it's basically the parable is about a girl who is complaining to her father about how hard life is and how hard adulting is and how everything seemed to be going wrong for her. And so he went into the kitchen and he took 3 pans and put them on the stove with water in them. And then to each pan, he added to one, a potato, to the second one, an egg, a raw egg, and to the third one, some ground coffee. And he boiled them and then he took them out and showed his daughter and said, "What do you see here?" And she was like, "I see an egg, a potato, and some coffee. Are we having breakfast?" And he was like, "No, I want you to see how they change when they face a challenge, which is the boiling water." And so it's kind of a bigger picture parable, but I think it's interesting because I do see the parallels with, how we respond to really rough things in our life. I know a lot of people who respond in each one of these 3 ways. So I think we can all identify with either one or like a mix. I'm kind of a mix, but yeah, I think it's interesting. So let's get into it. So yeah, that is the parable. Basically, it's a really powerful allegory about how hardships and adversities and troubles in our lives are always going to be there. And so we can't control that. We can really only control how we respond to them. The potato obviously represents people who are really tough on the outside and kind of think of themselves as this strong, impenetrable kind of, person. But when they face adversity, they become weak or soft or kind of just mush, like if you boil a potato, right? They become mushy potato.
I've heard this with diamonds, and that I just think that the whole thing where you understand what happens and the boiling, it all kind of makes it more like you connect with it more. So I totally love the physical transition from like what you're talking about to what you can physically see and feel and like the texture and everything like that, because it's true. So yeah, I've never heard of this before, by the way. I was one of the people that have never heard of this before. And that's why I was like, oh, interesting. So yeah, no, I think it's really cool.
I personally know a lot of potatoes in my life. And they tend to be, to me at least, the way that I see this is that I have people in my life who I love to death, but they see themselves as like the big, strong, in control, kind of people. And then when the universe does its thing, which it loves to do, whatever you think, it likes to show you that you're absolutely wrong. So I find that those people who think that they're in control, life likes to kind of show them how not in control they are by giving them circumstances that are completely out of their control, like a health issue or, a struggled relationship or a complete, political thing or financial thing that they can't control, or they thought they had control over, and then it's very clearly shown to them that they did not. It was an illusion, because control over your life is fully an illusion, right? None of us have control over our life.
No. And for someone who just, thrives on control and loves to control it, I've tried to figure this out. Nope, not everything. You can, all the small things, like maybe you can control some small things, but the big picture things that can really debilitate you and handicap you, like you're talking about, are not in your control.
Yeah.
Don't try.
And that's what I've seen with the people who are more like on the potato side, is that, when maybe they've always been like super successful, super on it, very high functioning, and then they get diagnosed with something.
Just been in their favor. A lot of
exactly.
They've been just like babied their whole life, or, lived in a nice area, or not really been exposed to a lot of, stuff like that. And, all of a sudden, and then they get hit with like the thunder of all thunders, and
yeah. And I'm sure you all know people like this. Like you'll be watching Survivor or like Naked and Afraid, and this is the person who's like, I could totally do that. Like I would kill that show. Like
they're there to prove dad and mom wrong, right? Because they lived at home their whole life and they can handle anything. And like day 2, they're like, I can't do it. Where's the helicopter? Yeah, that's
exactly
maybe me before kids.
Or they even like will be watching a political thing on the news or a sports game or something, and they will think they know how it should have been done better and what the problem was. And if I was in charge, this would be this way and that would be this way. And,
yeah. To think of them as all talk. Not a lot of action. Because the minute that their car doesn't work, or they, lose their job, or like a health issue comes around, it's like,
and that's
shock to your system when it first
that's
happens.
What you see when they come across someone who either doesn't respond to their general kind of tactics and just says no, or they get fired or something like that. Instant rage, right? Because they thought that they were completely in control of the situation, and then it turns out that they're not. Or sometimes they are just really like successful, high functioning people, and they think they've got their whole life mapped out, and then the universe goes, here's a horrible, debilitating disease. And they completely have a breakdown. They completely do not react. I mean, nobody reacts well to that, but like they become non-functioning, just because it's not the prognosis or the diagnosis that's the problem for them. It's the realization that the control that they thought they had was an illusion. The whole world as they saw it was an illusion.
It's interesting because we were talking about this before we started recording, that, I mean, if you're over the age of 5 and you live through 2019, 2020, this lesson is like so relatable it's so universal, because we all got knocked off our feet, the wind knocked out of us, and some of us got hit harder than others, but a lot of us had savings put away. We had jobs we just started. We just moved. We just bought a home. We just got engaged. We just got pregnant. And we all thought we had control, right? And then right out from under us. And really at that moment, all of us were under boiling water, and we all came out either the things we're talking about. Because, I mean, yes, we've all, I'm sure, had some more than others, huge, life altering situations, financial, health, whatever, that have already caused us to know one way or another. But the pandemic and what it did to all of us health, financially, just like all of us feeling like we had control over our lives and we really didn't. We all can relate to this. We all can know very quickly, like you and I also talked to off camera or off recording, like we knew really quickly what we were, because I mean, you've been you've been put in these situations, like daily is a test on your resilience. But I mean, really,
Yeah.
or you've evolved. Maybe you started as one thing, and because of what we've been through, you've learned to become more of something else, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Some of us really hadn't been tested, and then this happened, and we were all tested, all in different, very unique ways, but we were all tested, so.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point. If you have not faced, this serious kind of adversity before, the last 2 years probably gave you at least a taste of it, if not a full, knock over the head.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people lost their jobs, their livelihoods, their small businesses. It was a really challenging time. A lot of people lost family members. Obviously, so many people passed away. And it was just a really trying time for, and there's still people who are trying to come back from the kind of like financial losses, or, having long haul COVID symptoms, or whatever it is, or just adjusting to whatever this new normal is. I mean, there were people stuck in other countries for like a full year. Like it was a little crazy. And I think this was a really good test of everyone's resilience, and kind of put all of the people who maybe had never had to deal with something before kind of through the ringer together.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So side note, I mean, we've all kind of been tested before on other ways, but this one's a big universal, I've been there kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. So, okay, we went through the potato. Sorry. It's just, one of those days. So the next example is the egg. So the egg is something that we all consider to be kind of a raw egg. Obviously, we all know is very fragile, very delicate, easily broken. But when you boil it in hard water, or when it faces adversity like that, it comes out extremely strong and hard, and a completely different kind of consistency than it went in. And I think there are a lot of people in the world, I would include myself in this category, who become hardened over time of facing like adversity after adversity. I mean, you've seen with me personally, when something goes wrong, I go, of course. Of course it did. I almost expect it at this point. And for someone to try and tell you to like think positively or think about like the upside, I'm sorry. Like I've seen it, and it's, if there were anyone were in your shoes for a day, they'd be like, it's just not for me. It's just not meant for me. And it's okay, but there is something to the power of positive thinking and being positive and not being so hard. And so, but it's like, you have to like unhinge that. You have to like, you have to learn how to be soft to the world again. And it's like, and that's something that I genuinely struggle with. I genuinely struggle with vulnerability. I genuinely struggle with making like deep connections, because I've been so disappointed so many times by people. And it's not something, I mean, it's something I'm actively working on, because as much of a survival skill as it is for me, and it serves me in a lot of ways, it also, it doesn't foster the kind of connections that I want for the rest of my life. I mean,
so do you ever feel like maybe, I don't know if you were like this when you were younger with your kids. Do you feel like your kids were watching you to know how to handle these kind of things and how to become, like, I feel like if I were too hard, then it wouldn't, I'm always being watched, So I have to find a way to handle adversity and not be so hard, because I don't want my kids to be that way. Did you ever feel that pressure?
It's really funny, because a lot of it comes down to your kids' specific personalities and how they perceive the world around them, but also what they see in you. Because I had my first kid, obviously my son, very young, and went through a ton of difficult times. And it was before I became hardened like the egg, right? Everything really affected me. For a few years, it took me a while to kind of build that level of like, just confidence that I could handle what was happening, and also kind of like steeling myself for what was coming next. So in the beginning, there was like way too much softness and way too much reaction to every single thing.
Mhm.
And then in the interim, I was very kind of calculated in my decision making and very strong and very like nothing fazed me kind of thing. And then as my life has gotten easier and more comfortable in the last 20 years, I have relaxed a lot and I don't take things so seriously and I just kind of let things roll off me. And it's a different, I still feel like I'm an egg, but I don't feel like I have to be so tough all the time.
So maybe your environment has a lot to do with who you are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
you can't, sometimes you have no choice but to be, I'm sure a lot of people would love to be a little bit more relaxed, but they don't have that choice.
That's the interesting thing is that when you look at my children, I have 4, right? I call them the bookends, the oldest and the youngest are much more emotional, much more sensitive, much more reactive to stress. And the 2 in the middle are extremely strong and tough and not very emotional at all. And more like how I was for so long.
Oh, wow. You're so right. I know them. I know your kids well, and I know they are not the same as when I've known them. I know they've evolved as people and as adults, but like what I've known of them, you're so spot on,
And that's interesting to me because like, even though I think a lot of it has to do with who they naturally are as a person, like who they're just who they are and how they were. I mean, they were always meant to be who they are, but I also think they're affected by their environment and the parent who I did 100% of the parenting of my children. So I'm the only like role model in that type that they have. And even though
is there not a new mom that's not more like a potato? I feel like we're so reactionary as a young new mom that you're winging it, and then the ones in the middle, you've kind of figured it out, and then the ones on the end, your life has kind of figured itself out. So you're more relaxed. Like it makes sense.
And that's exactly what it was, because even though my sons are only 18 months apart, I was a completely different person 18 months after I had my first child, because the first child, I was so nervous. I was so young. I knew I didn't know what I was doing.
You like made your own baby food, right? And everything. You were like into it, like we all are.
I had never even babysat. I had no idea what I was doing. So I tried to do everything so perfectly. I was so hard on myself. I mean, cloth diapers and make my own baby food and literally like everything was like baby Einstein. And I have to do every single thing the parenting book tells me to do every single day perfectly. And I did not give myself any grace.
Yeah.
And then by the time the second one came around, I surrendered to the madness, and I was just like, okay. And plus he was very ill as a child. Colin was very sick when he was little. So I had no choice. I could not maintain that level of absolute type A parenting. So I literally just threw my hands up and embraced the chaos and learned to roll with it. And because of that, not only because of that, obviously, like I do believe nature has a big part of it, but they're they could not be more different. The 2 boys, they could not be, they're noon and midnight. Like they're so close and they love each other to death, but they are completely different people.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to me. And then, I've just become, even though I'm still an egg and I feel like I can handle anything that happens to me, it no longer comes from a kind of jadedness. Now it comes from a confidence, knowing that all of the horrible stuff that's gone on in my life, like I've always landed on my feet and I'm doing just fine. And, I was juggling chainsaws and I never dropped one. So I feel like
that's like some like Avengers superhero style feeling, right? When you hit something and you're like, I got this. Like, it's just there's no bigger flex than that. I'm sorry. There really isn't. I'm not saying I'm always there. I'm sure there's something that life could throw at me literally right now that could knock me right off my feet. But like just the other day, yesterday, my car didn't start, just after I dropped my kid off at school. And normally I would freak out, but I took a deep breath. I knew I could walk home. I knew Dan could help me figure out the car. I knew I had AAA. Like I knew life wasn't over. And I knew that also my youngest was watching me. And I didn't want to my first reaction would be to Yeah.
And
there's just a flex of knowing that you can it'll be fine and you'll be fine and you can handle it. And it's coming from a confidence level, not from like a street thug fake flex. You know what I mean? It's a very cool feeling. And it comes from handling adversity on all levels, and just age.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, like there was a point in my life where I thought that if I did everything perfectly and if I checked every box and I didn't forget anything and I did everything on my list, like nothing would go wrong.
Yeah.
And life taught me that that's bullshit. Everything still goes wrong.
Yeah.
And plus it goes wrong and then you're super tired because you did every single thing perfectly.
Yeah.
It still goes wrong. So I let go of that expectation of being so perfect all the time. And I stopped caring a lot what other people thought of me, which helped take a lot of the pressure off. And
to think you got to do all of this when social media wasn't such a huge thing.
Thank God.
Oh, because people do all this and then also have to keep a social media presence in this perfect lifestyle and, update their blog and like create content and now do real, like it's crazy. The expectations we put on ourselves as people, mothers, whatever.
I can't. No, I made so many mistakes, but nobody saw them because I didn't have social media.
But the minute you set yourself free of the things that you can't control, whether it's life's algorithm or social media's algorithm, it's just like, it's a very nice feeling because there's no such thing as perfect. Believe me, you've tried, I've tried, we've tried, and you can keep trying. You can make all the lists you want in the world. You can drink all the coffee you want, but you can't control some stuff out there that can really just bump you right off your feet,
Yeah, so. But even as a parent, I really believed that if I did every single thing the parenting books told me to do when my kids were little, that nothing bad would happen.
They would know Latin by 3 and their health would be perfect. And they
would all go to Harvard and nothing bad would ever happen to me. And they would be, and that obviously doesn't work that way. And we're all perfect.
See, that's just the pressure you put on yourself. Now people are like, if you don't do this stuff, are you even a good mom? It's like,
anyone who's had like preschool age kids understands that pressure because all the other moms are talking about, oh, if your kid doesn't go to this preschool, then they're not going to be able to go to that private school. Then they're not going to be able to get into college. And you're like, oh my gosh, my kids is going to be like, totally not successful.
I am
because they
literally
didn't go to this preschool.
1%. Both my husband and I are like we are on board the same on this. I'm like, dude, because I went to community college, I'm all for like choose your path. If you want to go to that school, best hope for a scholarship. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm never if I hear some preschool's great because it's going to get them into this school, I'm like, cool, you are like. Enjoy that. Like, I just want her to make a friend. That's why I'm paying money. Honestly, that's why I'm paying money for her to go to preschool right now. They're telling me all the academics and I'm like, that's cool. She better make friends because she just needs friends. She needs social skills right now, So I'm not that mom, but yeah, I get it. There's such a pressure to be perfect and to raise the perfect child and to, have everything put together that it's crumbling and, the pressure itself.
Oh yeah. I have so many regrets. If I had not put that pressure on myself and I had just trusted myself and my intuition as a mom, instead of thinking you're young, you don't know what you're talking about. Like I didn't have a mother growing up, so I didn't have an example. I'm going to follow the parenting books because they're experts. And I felt very ill-equipped, but looking back at it, I knew what to do, right? I just had to love them.
I don't understand why we choose the thing that we know the least amount, which is being a mom, to do the one thing that we would never do for ourselves, which is make our own food. Like I made my own baby food too. I had the baby bullet. We steamed food. I made all the baby food because I wanted to know what was going in her body, right? Like my second one, I totally bought all that baby food. I don't think I ever made one thing of baby food for her. We went from like, just as soon as we could, like solid foods. And then she was eating what we were eating. Like, and I don't know why I put so much pressure on myself the first time around. I don't know. And if I could go back, I wouldn't do any of that because I was so
because once I let go of those expectations, then my kids got a happier, less frazzled mom who
I was around, I was present.
Yeah.
I don't do the social thing as hard anymore, but I color with Kenzie and that's really what she wants, Like I realized that by the time I've caught up with what I feel my expectation of who I should be is, my kids will be in college and I missed everything.
Yeah.
So you got to choose what's important to you, your mental health, your real time family time, or is it trying to maintain this perfect image? Cause like something's going to break. I see some of these people online and they're doing a fantastic job. And I'm like, eventually, I mean, even Oprah gets tired. Beyonce gets tired. I'm just like looking at these people going like, how do you do it? And at what point are you just going to like give it all up? Because we can't all maintain that. We can't all be at a level 100 every day. We're not a computer on legs. It's not.
Yeah, it's not possible. And for me, it wasn't, I mean, obviously we didn't have social media and I wasn't trying to impress anybody as much
You
as
were
it was
trying
like,
to impress the moms though. My mom
yeah,
was
to some
trying to
extent.
impress her mom friends who were there's all this pressure.
I was
there.
I was overcompensating because I was so young that I got so much, and I looked even younger than I was.
People assumed you didn't know what the heck you were doing.
Like,
that you felt like you had to look like you knew what you were doing.
That sad teen mom. I wasn't
that.
like, I was an adult, but I looked so young and I felt so out of place. So I had to have the child who was perfectly dressed.
Society's pressure on you.
Yeah. Perfectly dressed kid, perfect part in the hair, always clean, always, I mean, to the point that it became unhealthy for both of us.
The fact that when you gave birth to your firstborn, it was not the gender you were told, gave you a sign that you had no control over the matter. I don't know what could have, because like you were prepared for a girl and you did not have a girl, yet you still just gun-hoed for that I can control it all thing. Bless your soul. I would have been like, well, this one is kind of a winging it situation.
Well, and even as they got older and I let go of those issues, I still had the thought that if I did everything perfectly and I never took my eye off the ball, that my kids would be safe, right? Because our biggest fear is that something will happen to our children. I think that's every mom's biggest fear. And so I was like asking all the questions, all up in their business, knowing everything, being there. I mean, I was as involved as a parent could be. I knew all their friends, all the parents of all their friends. I was super thinking, okay, this is going to protect me from that worst fear happening. And it didn't. I still got
stop now is what you're saying. Because
it didn't help. I mean, I still got that middle of the night phone call that no one wants to get. I mean, it didn't protect me from that. Yeah. And it didn't protect my kids from the world, because the world is out there. Right. And it's, I don't know.
Like they say, write a list of things, put one list, like cross off the things that you cannot control, work on the things that you can, honestly, become a coffee bean, which is the one thing we have.
That's the next one.
Right?
Yes. So the coffee basically represents the people who they understand and accept that they're never going to be free of adversity. And they don't necessarily embrace it, but they kind of adapt and grow with every hardship. They if you think about it, when you boil coffee, the coffee and the water both change for the better. It creates a whole, they mold together and it creates a whole new thing.
Do.
It creates amazing. The magic elixir we all rely on every morning. I mean, ground coffee or coffee beans by themselves are not great. And boiling water by itself also not super great, at least not in my opinion. I know some people love their hot water in the morning, but when you put the two together, you get the magic bean water that we all love so much. And so people who are more like coffee are people who take every experience that comes their way as a growth opportunity, and they change and evolve over time with the things that happen to them in a healthy way. And they don't become jaded, but they also don't become too soft. And it's a nice balance. It's something I'm still working towards. I think I'm somewhere in between the egg and the coffee, because I still have a lot of egg tendencies. But it's kind of what we all strive for, right? We all want to take problems in our lives and handle them and adapt and kind of become better for it.
I think it's a daily practice on reminding yourself, especially in those moments, that having that adversity is universal, that everyone goes through it. So when you're going through it, you can remind yourself that adversity is universal, because then it takes away the victim mentality away, which it comes from the why me, this is happening to me, the potato situation. And it also, keeps away that hard egg mentality from happening, because you realize that, okay, like, also reminding yourself, practicing being grateful in those moments is also really hard to do, but reminding yourself that things could be worse,
Yeah.
and if the situation is solvable, that it can be solvable, and that, this too, here's the thing, like, I heard some great quote from, I was watching some TikTok, and Tom Hanks was talking in a group full of other actors, and he was like, this too shall pass. If you're in a great moment, where everything's going well, this too shall pass. If you're in a horrible moment where everything is falling apart, this too shall pass, and it makes you appreciate the good moments, but it also makes you understand that when you're in those bad moments, it will pass, and
Yeah,
if
I
you
think
remind yourselves of those things when it's happening, you become that coffee, because you realize that you can get through it. It's so easy to fall into that victim, potato mentality, or that hard, of course it's happening to me. I've seen it all, and it doesn't serve anyone to have that. The problem will still be there, however you handle it. It's just, how are you going to handle it? Because the A and B are not going to serve you well. I think that's handle it over time with an egg, but it's just going to harden you, and you're going to push away people.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on now, and I think. But it's human nature when things are going well to assume that they're always going to go well. I'm finally past the hard times. Yes. Now I'm on easy street.
Yes.
And that's never true, ever.
No.
And
no.
Just like when we're in a bad time, it's also never permanent. So everything works itself out in the end if you give it enough time. And I know I'm better at doing this for the kids than I am at doing it for myself. But when one of the kids is struggling with something and feeling really down about it, or beating themselves up over a mistake that they made, or anything like that, I tend to remind them of things that they've been through that were harder.
Yeah.
And how, look, I've seen you deal with this. If you could, and you came out of that, like, so amazing. So I'm sure this will be no problem for you. And I think that reminding them that they've, faced harder challenges, and they've come out of it, with a great life lesson, or being a stronger person, or having a whole new path. Sometimes when something you think is terrible is happening to you, it's really kind of opening doors of other opportunities you had never would have thought of if you weren't in those positions.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have to let go of something sometimes to make room for the new thing. And that can be really painful.
Mm-hmm. Always, like, and in those moments where you feel weak, it's always good to remind yourself of something you've been through and came out the other side stronger. Or, when we lose a job or a relationship falls apart, and it's so quick to just like think that the world is ending, and that was what we were supposed to have. That was our path. Think about the time that you've lost a job, and you always have found another job, right? There will always be another job. It's hard. Yeah, it sucks right now, but maybe the new job that you have afterwards is even better. And you're going to feel, you're like, oh, thank goodness, that worked out. It always works itself out. Life has a way of working itself out. It's just, how do you handle, the small adversities to the big adversities, and how do you treat and care for yourself in those moments? Because it sucks, feeling down. It's just, don't beat yourself up, don't go to that victim mentality, and don't assume that it's a personal thing. Life's not personally attacking you,
Yeah. And if we look at these three examples in a way where we're feeling really bad feelings, right? The potato is going to feel those really bad feelings, and they're going to say, these bad feelings, this is who I am. This is where, and they get stuck in that place. I am this person who feels this way. And that's how they start to identify themselves. And it just prolongs the hard time. And it can be a really negative way of thinking that can spiral into depression or a severe anxiety. It just takes you dark places, and it's hard to get out once mindset is like that. Whereas the egg is like, these bad things that are happening to me, this is going to keep being this way, and the world is against me, and I can't trust anybody. And it becomes like hardening yourself, just like an egg, right? Where you don't let people in, you don't trust, you don't allow for new opportunities because you just expect that they're going to work out badly.
Or you'll push people away because you have that mentality that new opportunities can't show themselves because you're not, even seeing it, or
right.
You're pushing it away.
Or you see a great a great opportunity and you think, well, it probably wouldn't work out anyway. And you don't even try because it's something else didn't work out in the past, but maybe that wasn't the thing meant for you. And this is, you don't know. So the coffee people have those bad feelings and they don't shove them down deep. That's an egg. I do that sometimes. I'm not going to feel these feelings. These are uncomfortable feelings. But the healthy coffee ground person feels the feel. It lets themselves feel it, gives themselves permission to feel the feelings and take whatever lessons come along with those feelings. And then they let it go. And that's the letting it go is what's hard for the potato. The feeling the feelings at all is what's hard for the egg. But the coffee person can actually kind of take it like step outside of themselves and look at it, kind of analyze it a little bit. What was my responsibility here? What can I learn from this? And then they let it go. And that's the key, right?
Yeah. I think this whole thing comes down to one thing. It's a process. It's a transformation. I think we all start as a potato and we come out at some point as a coffee bean. And when you're coffee, like because things test you small and big and you handle it differently and you carry yourself differently. And I know when I was in my teens and my 20s, when everything was being taken care of for me and my car all of a sudden stopped working, like I would cry and whine about it and someone would fix it, like I would just go into victim mode, and then when I was in my mid 20s and I had a kid and, something wouldn't go my way, I'd be like, well, of course it didn't go like I was hardened for really still no reason. I still was pretty spoiled, and now because I have 2 kids, a lot of things going on, I've been through a lot of adversity, in my opinion. I know that I can handle it, like I'm more of coffee. And so I didn't start out, bless anyone who starts out as coffee, you're cool as heck. But I feel like it's an evolving, it's a transformation, because you've seen your past version of yourself and that that being an egg only pushes people away and it doesn't make the problem go away. The problem's still there. And that being a potato doesn't serve you well, especially if you're a mother, because the problem's still there and you can't go and become a victim. You have to become more like coffee. So yeah, that's my opinion. I think it's a more of like you evolve into certain things and, when like the other day, I just said it like yesterday when I would have handled that a lot differently at a different stage in my life. I would have just immediately gone into freak out mode, but I knew I was okay. I don't know. Maybe sometimes I'll be a potato on certain situations, but I feel like it's an evolving thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think as we face more things and get older, and because some of this comes with time. I mean, you just need time to deal with things that come up in life. And most people, there are definitely people who by the time they're a teenager have had enough trauma to be coffee, but if that's you, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I've seen that myself. A lot of my like trauma response training that I've done, I've seen some pretty bad situations where, it could have gone either way. Thankfully, a lot of the children are the most resilient, right? A lot of times they turn out to be coffee because I don't know if they're just smarter than us or what. Maybe we become more jaded as we get older.
They maybe aren't fully aware of all of the possibilities that could possibly happen. So that certain amount of jaded keeps them calm. I don't know. Like our brains go into frazzle mode when we're adults because we're just so exposed to all the things that we're like, must control this horrible world we live in. Kids are like, you'll be fine. And guess what? They're right. We were fine. Mom freaked out over nothing. But Mom also knows the possibilities of what could have happened in that situation. So of course you think we're fine at 5, but kids have this bit of coffee beanness to them that it just comes from being jaded, I think. And just,
unaware. I think the key is to find just the right balance of vulnerability because, you don't want to be too vulnerable where everything hits too deep, and you don't want to be not vulnerable at all because if the bad stuff can't get in, then neither can the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And you just need to find that balance where you can be vulnerable in a way where you still feel your feelings and you can make deep connections with people and you weather the storm kind of. And, if you allow yourself to make those kinds of deep connections, then what does that build? It builds a support system for you so that when things go wrong, you have people in your life that can kind of help you when you're slipping a little bit.
Yeah.
We
Not a
all
lot of
need
people
that.
know what you're going through because you just put this wall up. You don't expect anyone to be there for you, or you've had bad experiences in the past, and you'd be surprised to see, how much support you can get if you open up a little bit.
I tend to be really hyper independent. I know that it's like a trauma response, but it's just who I am. But when I have at times in my life reached out to people and asked for help or asked for support, I am always shocked at how willing people are to be there for me, because I just assume I'm on my own with everything.
Mhm.
But when I have reached out and been like, hey, I'm kind of going through it, and people are like, what can I do? It's the nicest feeling to know that you have like a safety net underneath you when you're tightrope walking. It's the best feeling in the world. But you have to allow that to happen.
Mhm. I agree.
And that's the coffee. that's what we're striving towards.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I know like this topic is really clear to me, like what I am and what I'm working towards. But I'm really curious to hear other people's kind of perspective on this and what they think when they hear this analogy and how it speaks to them, because I think everyone gets something different out of that comparison.
I'm like a coffee flavored omelet, like I got, cause I mean, it's hard. Some people have been through some seriously crazy stuff that it's like, how do you soften up after that? Work in progress,
Yeah,
Absolutely. Lots of Adele music. That helps. Just really get in touch with those feels and, get past it and move on. That's the thing, is like moving on, like not holding a grudge. Like that's a hard thing, for me personally, is not, is letting go. Like I'm all for feel.
Yeah.
I embrace the feels. Like Taylor Swift and Adele taught me how to feel. It's just like letting it go after that and moving forward and being productive and like making room for a new possibility without being jaded from the last one. That's the hard thing for me.
Yeah. And that's one thing I want to point out. We talk about letting go. We talk about moving on and not letting things phase up. If you've been through a catastrophic loss, don't hold yourself to that standard. Yeah. I know people who have lost children, who have lost their partner. And that's not something we would expect anyone to let go of or move on from. What you do is you become a new version of yourself. And it may not be the person you were before, but that person also has value and has a lot to give the world. And you're just kind of a new you. And you always have that kind of broken part, but it's not I wouldn't say that it's something that you need
that person wouldn't want you to be left broken. I lost my mom really suddenly and out of nowhere, and it left me really hard for a really long time. And, if that's one thing my mom taught me, it was never to be like angry or hard at the world. And so at one point I just realized I was doing her a disservice by being this hard version of myself and not letting people in, so you have to just realize that like everybody wants the best for the person that they loved. And if something like that is hard in you, that's not what we're talking about.
It's not what we're talking about at all.
You can take a lesson from it on some level,
Yeah. I know people in my life who have lost a child, and I don't think it's possible to be the same person afterwards.
No. Or figure out a reason why or a lesson from that. Like,
or move on or let go.
No, it just never gets answered. You evolve into and transform into like you said, a newer form. Oh, it's so hard, and it's everyone's time frame's different. Like it's there's somebody I know who had a friend whose child, like they lost their child in their own pool, and like they lost their child. And to know that you lost your child so young and suddenly, even to know someone who's personally been through that as a mother, like even now to this day, even talking about it, like it still pains me. I wouldn't know how to get through something like that. It would take forever, you never become better after that. You just figure out how to get through this thing called life as best as you can without being like the most hateful person in the world. And that's a lot to ask of somebody.
Those kinds of losses are something that mold you into a new version and you
Yeah.
carry it with you for the
And
rest of your life.
That's
And
so fine. It's
that's
fine.
totally fine. That there's nothing wrong with that. It's another thing that you just, like the coffee, you become a whole new entity. And I not worse or better or anything, or it's just, you're different now. You've been through something, you're part of a club that unfortunately nobody should have to be part of. And you carry that with you.
But that's
till the end
thing
of your
is
days.
there is support. There are places that you can go to and freely talk about the hardest possible thing, that because like, here's the thing is no one is going to know how to properly respond to somebody who is going through that.
No,
other than someone who has very much going through that, or has gone through that. You have to find a support system that can connect with you on that level, because like, you don't need to shut down. And you also understand that telling anyone is just too much of a burden for people. Like, I know, because I've heard my friends say like, I don't know how to talk to her, but I also don't want to be quiet. But sometimes just being there is enough. You have to find the right outlet for that, and
Absolutely.
it's okay to be an egg for however long as you need to be an egg for, because that should never happen to anyone.
No.
Losing a child is next level. Losing any, partner, suddenly a family member of any sort is just really hard. So, definitely find a way to talk about it, but in a safe environment where you can really talk about it,
Yeah, absolutely.
It shouldn't harden you. Yeah.
No, it shouldn't. But it would expect that it will change you and give yourself, every grace that there is and as much time as you need to be a potato or an egg or whatever you need to be.
Be whatever form of food you need to be. Like,
whatever.
I'm no judge, because like, it is a funky time, and it will forever be a funky time, because like, you were literally a different person, like right before that, and it's the harshest form of life, showing you how not in control you are.
I agree.
It sucks on the highest level.
I had a friend who lost her husband and small child at the same time in an accident. And I genuinely do not know how she got through that. I mean, I know how she did, because she had older children she needed to take care of, but the strength of that person, holy hell. She was functioning afterwards. And I can't even imagine the strength that required of her. I have so much respect for anyone who deals with that kind of adversity.
I have so much respect for anybody who goes through it and just literally loses their absolute freaking shit for 2 freaking years and is just a total mess, because like, to have that type of trauma is, there's no class to prepare you for that.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what that does to your system until it happens, and then it's happened, and then you figure it out. Like, I don't know, your children, your family, like your husband, like those are your whole world,
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be.
There are no rules on how to deal with that. There's no protocol, and no matter how you deal with it, if you deal with it at all, you're amazing.
You're a champion.
You're absolutely amazing.
Don't expect it. You don't have to have it all together. And sometimes, being a mom or having like something that's just causing your attention to be put somewhere else for a while you go through that shock system is good, but you do have to come back and face it at some point, because just putting a Band-Aid over it with like being super busy is also not good, because you will literally explode at dinner one time and out of nowhere. It's just how we're wired. We're humans, where we can't be, high functioning all the time. You got to allow yourself to feel,
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think those situations are very different than the everyday things that we're talking about and dealing with. And I think building resilience is such a good track to take for anyone, because as the last couple of years have shown us, like you pointed out, I mean, difficult times are going to come to everybody at some point of their life. And if you start building resilience and tolerance for the little inconveniences that we deal with on a regular basis, then when bigger things come up, you'll have, more tools in your toolbox of how to handle them in a healthy way.
it just showed us a lot of what we can control. A lot of people lost their jobs, but then they realized that they could like start a small business on their own or do a side hustle or market for themselves or whatever, like we realized like, oh, the world is this way, but I can do this, versus the people that are like, the world is this way, so I must be this way too. It's like, how did you roll with it? You saw all kinds of ways. So, we all strive to be coffee, and some days I'm coffee and some days, man, after like the fifth thing, I'm like, like it's, it's a work in progress.
I think that's very normal. I mean, that's the saying goes, some days you're the statue and some days you're the pigeon. Right. And I feel that because I've had both.
It's not about being coffee all the time either. That's also okay to be, it's human nature to not be perfect, but we all strive to be cool, calm, collected coffee all the time.
Yeah. So the examples that we gave you today and our take on it in no way is meant to be, judgmental or critical of any of these three types. I think what we're trying to do is just give everyone like a little bit more awareness, because self-awareness is such a great tool to have. And if any of this resonated with you and you can see the benefits to trying to work your way towards coffee, I think then, we did our job today.
Yeah. I feel like, when we did that podcast about your sleep animal type, like that's very much, I am this way. This is me. This is what I am. This is more like, depending on what's going on, you maybe are this way. You are striving this way. This is more like fluid versus something where you're like, listen, this is how you're wired, Yeah.
And if you listen to this and you said, I'm a potato and I'm happy being a potato, then absolutely, you know what? I love potatoes. Go ahead. Go girl. Man, I'm a potato.
If I could go back to my days of being a potato, oh God, those were the days where like my biggest issue was like, did I pass science? You know what I mean? And like, if I didn't, I'm grounded. Life's over, or like Bobby didn't call me back. Like, oh God, like the potato days were my favorite days. Now I have to be coffee because shit's real, like shit is real. No one cares if Bobby likes you. It's more about, did I pay rent? Does my car work? Did I feed my kids? Like crazy stuff where I don't have I want to be the potato. I love potatoes. Yeah. I have to.
I mean, we're not telling everyone that they have to be coffee. So
I'm going to hit my potato stage. Like when I hit like retirement, I'm going to be such a potato that it's just like, I'm going to allow myself to really just be soft. Cause it's just your 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. I don't know. I'm not there yet. There's either egg or coffee or a mix of both. There's no time for potato. And if there is,
so maybe we'll go full circle. We'll be back in the retirement home as potatoes. And
wouldn't that be nice?
And our biggest problem will be that they didn't have tapioca at lunch today, and we want tapioca. We're going to revolt.
I was driving home from dropping Kenzie off at preschool, and I was waiting at the stoplight, and I was watching this. I would say she was in her 60s walking a dog, and her dog was doing his thing, and she was just looking at the flowers, and she was there for a while. And I thought to myself, because it was a long night, I thought to myself,
nice.
I want to get to a point where I have the time to walk my dog and stare at flowers and like maybe wonder like what kind of flowers they are. How can I get those to grow in my yard? I just want the time for that. That's what I want. I don't have time for a dog, let alone to walk it or look at
smell flowers.
Like and that's what I want. I just want little problems.
I want my problem to be that I have to wake up from my nap in time for balloon volleyball today in the rec room.
Gosh, like
that would be great.
And I know that then I'll get there and be like, I miss the days when my body looked like that and I could play with my kids and run around.
Oh, hell no.
Me. Like I know, maybe, but I'm here right now and I'm so tired and I just want to walk my dog and stare at flowers.
That was a real
thought. That was a real thought. I'm like, wow, my priorities have changed. I remember when I was in my 20s, I'm like, I just want to go to Aruba and own a freaking house and have a nice car and like travel the world. I'm like, no, that's so much work. I just want to walk my dog and stare at a flower and then go back and watch, like, I don't know, I Love Lucy and make banana bread. That sounds like the best day
I have to say this. I remember my grandmother used to watch soap operas during the day. And the fact that she had time, she had time to watch an hour of a soap every day of the week.
No, my grandparents.
Oh my goodness.
It was Price is Right. It was Bold and the Beautiful and Young and the Restless. And there was like an hour break in between where they like made lunch. It was a full day and they had one TV. And if you didn't watch those, then you didn't watch TV.
My mom couldn't miss
soap opera.
You couldn't miss a day because somebody would have died or had someone's baby or had an affair and you missed it.
11 a.m. to like 2 p.m. Like the time of day where like everyone is either at school or work. Like, so, you know, I'm just like, and that was that. And I spent 2 weeks out of my summer with my grandparents every single year when I was a kid because my mom was a teacher and she was still teaching. And that was totally a thing grandparents do. Yeah. And then they have dinner at like 4:30 and then they watch Jeopardy or the news and they complain about how terrible the world is getting. And then they go to bed.
In bed by 8. Yeah. I can't imagine having the time to dedicate 5 days a week, an hour of my day to watch a soap opera and get all involved in it. I aspire
still
to
get
that.
the rest of your day done. Like they still did other things. They tended to their garden. We played dominoes. Like it was like there was other things happened. I can't do it. I can't do it. I feel like if I had all that time, I don't know, I would still be like trying to find something to do.
Trying to hustle. Know? We got to stop with the hustling.
This hustle culture is going to kill us all. I swear. Our life expectancy will be
culture
60.
Is not giving me time for soap operas.
Or to stare at a flower for 2 minutes. That lady was there for so long. Her dog was like staring at her going like, I'm done. Like, let's keep moving. And I was just sitting there going like, you have the whole world I want.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Do tell us in the comments and Facebook what you are at the moment.
Yeah, we want to hear about it. So you can comment on this article. It should already be up on the site, or you can go to Facebook and search She's a Full-On Monet and look there for our discussion group and give us your thoughts because I want to hear about it. So I want to hear what you see yourself in and whether you're happy there or you want to change to something else. So
and if you're comfortable, a little backstory on who you are and what your life is at the moment, because I feel like that's very. You know, if you're like, I'm a potato and I'm 20 and I live at home, well, that makes sense, you know, or I'm like 30 with 4 kids and I'm coffee. Like, I feel you. I get that, you know? So, you know, share who you are and what's up. And, you know, if you're happy with who you are, if the, you know, food in which we are relating it to you, if that's something that you're like happy with, or you're striving to be something else, you know.
Yeah. We want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys coming back week after week and sharing your time with us. And we will talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, it helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.